They did not understand, and they were afraid to question. My heart this week is deeply moved by the unending patience and wisdom and generosity and devotion our loving God in Jesus shows us in Scripture and in life. Our loving God in Jesus shows us unending patience and wisdom and generosity and devotion. So when we read that the disciples did not understand and were afraid to question, I wonder, what message is in that for me and us and our world? Because I too, so many times, too many times, find myself unable to ask for help understanding. Maybe it's because I think I do understand, but I don't. Sometimes it's because I'm afraid of the answer. It can be because I'm too confused to form a question. Or I'm too hurt, angry, or distracted to notice the need for understanding. Or I lack the awareness, sheer cluelessness, and lack of curiosity. Maybe in your mind and heart, you're adding to this list other barriers. Often, despite all of that, I still have a niggling feeling there's something I'm missing. And when that happens, and I search for what's missing, I too am perfectly capable to turn to my own stock of substitutes to discernment. The art of putting up a good front, of keeping busy, of wearing the pretense of productivity, or noticing the faults of others as a way to reassure myself. And that comes to another line in our gospel. They had been discussing among themselves who was the greatest, which is a euphemism for they were also discussing who was not. You see, the disciples had their coping mechanism too, and they were discussing among themselves who was the greatest and who was not. Now, just pausing for a moment here. In the chronology of Mark's gospel, Jesus had only just recently been transfigured on the mountaintop. We read that reading back in Lent, but in the text of the gospel, that reading happened just prior to what we read today. He had only just recently been transfigured on the mountaintop in dazzling glory and in the company of Elijah and Moses and in the presence of these very disciples. So it's no wonder they were hyped up. Jesus had also now twice spoken about his coming suffering and death. And I asked myself, what message would I rather perseverate about? Transfiguration on the mountaintop in dazzling glory, or suffering and death? In his unending patience and wisdom and generosity and devotion, Jesus perceives all of this, and he realizes he needs a different approach. And so he shifts gears, and he provides this profoundly appropriate focus for their attention and ours as well. And he gathers a child into his arms. Can you just imagine the vibe changing? And he says, whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. Forget about greatest and not greatest. Whoever receives one child as this in my name receives me. Whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me. So, when we and I are too afraid or confused, too hurt or angry or distracted, too clueless to know how best to be the Christ and see the Christ, then we're invited to pause, take a breath, look around. Who around you needs the gift of kindness today? Where are the opportunities to love tenderly and walk humbly? How can we, as individuals and a community, serve as hope for the world? Pause, take a breath, and remember the words of our second reading, that wisdom from above is first of all pure, then peaceable, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits. These are my thoughts about the readings today. How about you? Please share your thoughts.